Yes, so welcome to all of you from the Netherlands, Groningen. My name is Dirk Nijdam. I'm the General Director of the Forum in Groningen, a complete new building with libraries, museums, a lot of exhibitions. We have art house theater, so it's a complete new concept where we merged all those things together. And I'd like to explain you a little bit what we did over here and what the situation and still is in our town. But first of all, I think when you're in Thailand, you probably don't know the city of Groningen very well, so give me just a short touristic tour to our city so you can imagine what's happening over here. Groningen is in the north of the Netherlands, and the Netherlands is the western part of Europe. We have 230,000 inhabitants. We are the youngest city of Europe, and that's actually quite special because the average of the inhabitants is 36 years old. So it's a very vibrant young city, and you see it directly when you walk into the city. And it's actually because it's a student city. We have over 50,000 students over here. And this is important not only for living here, but also for what's happening in our building. We have a complete different atmosphere than you would see in any other city in Europe, actually. We have a huge university, we have a large-scale University of Applied Science, and actually this is a city of a lot of cultural festivals and so on, and this has also a lot to do with the way the population is put together over here. People say when they enter the city, it's a bustling city, a city that never sleeps, and actually that's the truth because we have a lot of bars and restaurants over here, especially because it's a very young city. And the government has decided that there's no closing time for those. So that's very special. I think there's only a few places in the world that have the same policy. But over here, you can, at 7 o'clock at night, you can still drink a beer in some bars. And only the owner of the bar decides when he wants to close. It's not mandatory by government or so whatsoever. So people decide when they close the bars and the restaurants. So that makes it also at 3 o'clock at night a very vibrant place to stay. What you have to know actually when you want to know a little bit more about our situation is that we have an ancient history. We have a medieval part, the city center is a really old part with old buildings and partly destroyed in the Second World War. And that's actually where the ideas from this new building, this new forum in the city center comes from. So that's quite relevant. You see on this scaled map, you see those two churches, they're still there. And we are actually, at this moment, this is the place where the forum is situated. So actually in the old city center, where on a spot that was destroyed in the Second World War. So we have the overlook of the city, and actually you see here the same. You see the old buildings, the old gardens, and you see some new concepts like the Groningen Forum. And everything is combined, so it's a really city with two faces actually. A city square on one hand, one of the city squares, and you see the typical festivals in the gardens in the city. And over here you see the university, all the university area, a lot of bikes. The bike thing is actually the biggest problem we have now in the city. So it's one of the best problems you could probably have as a city. But because of the young people, there's a lot of biking, and everything is now based on regulate the number of bikes in the city because everything is on bike. So you have a little bit touristic view of the city. I think it's a lovely city. It's not that big, it's small, but there's a lot to do. And actually because the young population, it's a city that's really much alive. And why is this so important? This is actually important because the concept of the forum is actually, when you have the old city on one hand, we're making in the old city a new city, and the new city became the forum. The forum is quite a big building, especially when you compare it to the size of Groningen. As I told you before, Groningen has about 230,000 inhabitants, and the forum is a 10-story building, 17,000 square meters in the city center. And so you can imagine there was also a lot of discussion with all the inhabitants of Groningen. Is that a good idea? Is it a good idea to build in an old city center such a big icon, especially on the size of Groningen? It's not New York over here, it's not Bangkok, it's Groningen, it's a small city, and they built this huge building over there. I think that makes it very special and extra special, but you can imagine that there was a lot of discussion beforehand whether or not it was a good idea. And to explain a little bit what's happening in the infrastructure over here, I have the next slide. This is actually the part where the forum is built now. And then you can see there are some old buildings surrounding. This is old material, old monastery. And this was actually the part that was destroyed during World War II. And that was rebuilt very quickly after the World War with cheap architecture, cheap materials, not very inspiring place. It was also, it became a dirty spot because it was the back streets of the area where people go out with the bars and the restaurants. So this was actually not a nice area. It was not a very safe place. So the municipality decided we have to change it. We have to bring some inspiration in this place. We have to bring other traffic than only drunk people in the place. So let's move on. Let's do something for the next generation. And then they decided to use this area as a construction area. So these buildings were teared down, but this was not old architecture. This was the buildings from the 70s and the 60s. And you can see at number 1, there was a parking garage, well, the old-fashioned way, very ugly. And they decided to tear it all down and make this place a new city heart. And it was actually built on a very democratic way because the Forum was the client of the building was of the municipality. The municipality is they paid for the building. They own the building, and we are actually the institution that rents the building from the government. It's an NL architect building. It was over 100 million euros, and it was constructed in 2012 to 2019. It was a lot of delays, and we had some minor earthquakes in the ground over here, so we had to reconstruct this building again. So we had quite a long period to construct it, and but we opened finally at November 2019, and from that moment everything changed, and it's a huge success. People never expected that it would be so popular as it is right now. But I think it's nice to know, and that's what you see on the slide. There was a pitch for 7 architects, and the best was chosen and picked by the inhabitants of the city of Groningen. So it was a very democratic way. In the Martini Church, there was this pitch, and all the buildings were there, and all the architects were there to explain how they would see this new Forum building. And the best architect won, and was chosen by a jury of professional architects and also a jury of people who live in the city. And every inhabitant of the city could vote on his favorite Forum building. The jury from professionals, as the inhabitants of the city, they chose the same building, the same architects, and that's how it became the Forum as we know it today. But there were seven other Forums as well, so it could be a completely different building. And actually it's very nice that this building is chosen by the professionals and also by the inhabitants of the city. So I think that's a very special democratic way to adopt new architecture into your city. Because the municipality already knew that modern architecture in an ancient city, that there's lots of discussion, so it helps that people have a vote in that. And this is how it looks like in real. And you see also that it's used from the bottom to the top, so always people on the rooftop enjoying the view of the ancient city. And you see how special actually it's combined between the old and the new, and it has this complete special role in the city. So it's not part of the old city, or it's not going into conflict with other parts. It's just a complete icon. People sometimes say there's like a UFO landed in the middle of the city. It has its own spot. And the strange thing is, when you walk in the city, you can hardly see it. It's hard to imagine on this image, but when you walk on just a street level, it's very hard to pick it up, the building, because of all the buildings that surround you. And when you're going up or you're going on a distance, then you see the building arise above the city. Well, I think the main question, and that's why you're probably here, is what is it? Is it just a building? How do the functions are combined? What makes it so special? I think it's a successful place for Groningen. It's extremely overcrowded actually, and in a good way. And we expected about 1 million visitors a year. And even in COVID times, with a lot of regulations, we had more than 1.5 million visitors a year. Even when we were closed down, the first year we had about 2 million visitors, but we were also closed for 4 months. So, and when you see those numbers and you compare it to the city size, you can imagine how big success this building is. People walking in and going out and walking in again, and it's really became, in a very short period, a very vibrant and important place for the city center. But what is it? Is it only a building? No, it's way more than a building. I think the architecture helps us to give the ideas a form, a shape, and They help to attract people because it's very attractive architecture. Not everybody likes the building, you know, it's a way of taste. Everybody is curious about this building and it attracts a lot of people. We opened in November 2019 and since then we had more than 3 million visitors. What makes it special that we are open every day of the week and we are closing at noon. So we are opening every morning at 9 o'clock and we are closing in the middle of the night at 12 o'clock. And that every day of the year, so 365 days, New Year's Day, Christmas days, we are always open. And so people in the city who are a little bit bored or want to have a drink or just want to enjoy the view or want to meet people, they know there's always a place that's always open and that's the Forum in Groningen. I told you already, 70,000 square meter floor space, over 10 floors. And you see the pictures, you see it's a huge building with a huge heart in it. So it's an open area, a very open building. And from the outside it looks a little bit closed, but people, that when they enter the building, they see how it opens for them. Maybe the main thing in the building is that people feel welcome in the building. What we did actually in the interior architecture is make it feel home. So we used 4 different interior architects in the building, and we asked them one thing: make it like you would make your own home. When you have a building and you know there will be a lot of people that coming in, easy to say, well, it should be very strong material, it should be easy to clean, it should be so strong that when people use it a lot, you don't see any damage. And when people want to break it or something, it must be hard to break. We said, well, your home is not that way. When you want to feel home, you should give people the confidence that you know that they will behave over here and that they won't make things broken and that they use it as proper as they do it at home. So we give the people the trust that that we have very nice stuff, we have a nice interior, and we are confident, and we give them the trust that they behave like they behave at home over here. And I think that works quite well. So when you see the materials used and you see the carpets and you see the chairs over here, it's not based on the principle that it's for the audience, so it should be made of sky material or it should be made of plastic or other artificial material and fabrics. No, it's really made of the materials you have at home. And I think that gives the whole interior an upgrade, and it makes really that people feel welcome. So it's a low threshold. People who are in the city and want to visit us, they know they're always welcome. When they're not a library member, we don't care. If they don't want to use our facilities, we don't care. When you only want to go to the rooftop to have a nice view over the city, we don't care. Everybody is welcome as long as he or she behaves in the building. Yeah, we have 5 cinemas, art house theater we have. It's one multi-purpose hall, and we use it for debate, for talks, for discussion nights, for festivals, for parties as well. We have 2 exhibition galleries for international traveling exhibitions. We have 1 museum, Story World. That's a museum about the comic book, about animation movie, and about the game industry. So we can combine those things with other things that we do in the building. Of course, the city library. We have 3 restaurants and cafes. We have our own shop, and we have the tourist information over here. And actually what we are trying to do, it's all one organization. So when you enter this building, there's only one director. When you want to talk to the programming staff, there's only one staff group. So there's not a programming for that area or that. Everybody's working together in teams, and it's one organization. And I think that's really important. So the connections are easily made because we're all colleagues. It's not, we do not have to make appointments with another organization. It's one organization. I think when you want to understand what's happening here and when you compare it to other libraries in the city or in the world, I think that our main focus was when we went to this building, we had a lot of discussions of how the new library in Groningen should look like. Then we decided to not move the old library to the new building and add some stuff. We said, now what's happening when there's no library anymore in Groningen? What do we miss? What do people nowadays want from a library? What did we do the last 50 years? But when you start now, and there was no library, what would people expect from a library? Where is the need for a library? What kind of functions are more important than others? And so forget all the history, restart, and then merge it with the new functions. So I said a lot of it in interviews before we went to this building. When people are entering this new building later on and they come out and they say to other people, oh, Groningen has a new library, I have seen it, it's a nice library, then we did everything wrong. For me it was very important that when people would enter this building and they look around, that they didn't have the first association with libraries, but that they would see it's a complete new cultural concept, and then when they start to investigate what you could do over here, they see that there's a lot of functions over here what's relevant for them. And whether or not it's a library function or it's a function for people who have problems reading, or is it people who just want to have fun, or people who have to looking for a place where they can study together with other people, of working, or the functions are all there, the books are all there. But it's not, when you enter the building, it's not that you would say, oh, this is the new library. When you're going out the building, you see that there's a lot of library stuff in this building. That way of thinking was for us very important. So to come loose from the old library conventions and the old idea of what's a library. We said we want to go forward and don't look back. Explore the world, meet the future. That's our headline. So people who enter this building should be inspired. They should get an idea of what's going on in the world. And for us, it's very important that we look forward. So we are not the library with the archives, where you can look up old things from the earlier days. We have those archives in Groningen, but they are not in this building. But we are a building that we want to help people to understand the future, to understand that everything is going digital, and that you have a new role when you want to communicate with the government, when you want to communicate with the health companies, health security companies. It's all digital, and we want to help people with those kind of processes. But on the other hand, there are people that are always front runner, and we want those front runners in with the new technique. We want to help them to be even more a front runner and to inspire them to go further, think higher, think better. Well, this is of course an example of one of the most beautiful libraries in the world. And this is how it was for years and years and years. Even when there was a lot of technology coming up and even Google was invented, there were still, and there are still, a lot of libraries this way. But this is of course very nice and very authentic, but this is not an answer on the questions that people have today. Actually, this is the new library. One slide with a lot of things you probably know or recognize, that how the information is coming towards us and how people are communicating with other people. Of course, there are still books, but there are video games, there are channels like Netflix, and there are a lot of social media that disrupt you and give you information and fake news and real news. And the role of institutions like the Forum, I think, is to give people guidance in this world and help people to understand what's going on and where the world is going to. So we have to start up debates about things that are going on in the world. We should help people with digitalization. We should help elder people that are not able to cope with all the things that are going into society and they can't really understand anymore because it's going so fast. I think there's our role, and for that reason it's very important that it's really easy to go to our building, that there are no high thresholds, no limitations of coming here. Everybody is welcome, and I think that's the main, because from being welcome, the rest will come. From being in this building, we can help them. But when people are not coming to your building, it's really hard to reach them. So that's why the way of being welcome in this building is for us very important. Actually, we have three main topics that we want to address in this building. First of all, the current affairs, so everything that's going on in the world. Well, the easy example is of course always Putin versus Biden, or formerly the Donald Trump stuff, but also the Olympic Games, or the nice things that are happening in the world, and of course things like the COVID disease. And we want to give people the information and give them the bagage to understand what's going on in this world and how they can make their own mind up. Not like that we are putting something in their brains, but we want to give them objectively the right information so they can make their own mind up and think what they think about all the things that's happening in the world. The other thing, and that's also connected to the current affairs, is technology. Technology and science, the whole world, and I think it's in your area absolutely the same as over here. Technology is getting more and more important and changes a lot of roles and changes a lot of work and changes a lot of how you can see the future. Is the future threatening you, or are you part of the future? And how can you become part of the future when you're not really focused on technology and science? And in this part, we try to help people. What I told you before, we want to pick them up and help them to move on a level, and for the people that really are on low interest in those subjects. And but also the front runners, we want to inspire the front runners to go on with artificial intelligence and show them the newest developments in that area. So for every level we have packages of information, and we have festivals or debates evening to help them to move on and go further. And the last area is the area of the popular culture, all the storytelling nowadays, all the heroes that people have now, from artists, movies, Marvel, you know, all those things that are, especially for young people, that in the image culture, we want to be part of that too. And that's a lot of times it's very nice, and it's very, how you say it, it's almost entertaining industry, but there's also a way of communicating, because especially young people, they communicate on a different way with the TikTok, the Snapchat, the Facebook, you can call all the socials they have, and the Instagrams. So you should be part of that area too, to understand what's going on in the world. Yes, then we go on to our building. Our building is, I think, well, first of all, I would invite you all to someday visit our building and have a look and give me a call, and I give you the guided tour, of course. But our building, I think, is quite a special building. And always when you look at the building, you should imagine that it's in a city of 230,000 inhabitants. And because it's actually a little bit oversized for a place like us. But maybe that's the reason that it works so well. We have an entrance hall that you see over here on this picture, architectural. And it's a lot of place where people can sit. We have a huge, large LED screen where people always watch the latest news. When the Olympic Games are on, we have on a huge screen the Olympic Games. So people, there's always something going on in the building. So it's always attractive when you're in the city center and you don't know what to do, or you hang out, you're shopping a little bit. It's always nice to just walk through the building, see what's going on. We have live talk shows where you don't have to pay a fee for. You can just go there, sit and relax and enjoy the talk show, things like that. Now here you get a little bit the sight of how open this building is. And the openness really helps you to see other people. So you're never locked up in a certain area of the building. It's always in an open area where you are. And you look around and you see all those people sitting, drinking, because there are 3 bars and restaurants in this building. So there's always something going on. There's music in some areas, some quiet areas. So it's a vibrant place with, from every floor, a great view of the city. But of course, it's a library, so we still have those hundreds of thousands of books. And but especially the library part, we made it really cozy, like you are at home. And actually, we picked it from the Aarhus library. That's in Denmark. That's the first time we saw that. That when there are comfortable chairs and there are comfortable couches and people feel comfortable, people start reading already in the library. Our old library was a place where you go to, where you went to, and then you pick a book. You go out directly, you go home to start reading the book. And we said it would be nice when people don't feel like going home, but they like the place so much that they start reading already in the library. So that's why we made it very comfortable with carpets and a completely different interior with a lot of wood. Especially this part, a thriller department, where all the exciting thriller books are standing. You can play billiard over there. You can just sit and relax. And actually, that's the main thing. We see that people change their behavior. When this library opened, people really went there, sit on a chair and start reading the book. And just after a couple of chapters, they went home to read the rest of the book. Some members even read a book over here, put it back on the bookshelf and come back next day and go on with reading the book. So they really see this place as a new part of their home situation. And I think that's the big success of this building. So people really like to be here because you can read a book at home, but when you have a nice chair and you have good coffee and you have still something to see, so when you overlook your book, you see a lot of people walking by and you see people you know, and then you get a complete different atmosphere in the building. And actually I think that's the main part of the success of this building. Then you move on in the building and then you see that we also have the 5 movie theaters over here. Completely different atmosphere, very tactile again. And you see, this is more the Hollywood atmosphere. We have 5 movie halls, and this is our main luxury movie hall. It's not a big theater because it's art house theater, but you see the atmosphere with those spotlights and those big Italian chairs. Everything we have over here is also for rent, so people can give their own parties and then they rent this movie hall. They can, of course, see our daily scheduled movies. But when they have a presentation they want to show, or they want to show the pictures of the family with their whole family, they can rent this also. So there's also, this building is not only our building, but we're renting the facilities to other persons as well, just to underline that it's not our building, but it's the building of the whole society. Now, we are a student city, I told you already. We have about 50,000 students in the city, and that's on a total number of 230,000. That's quite a lot. It's almost a fourth of the inhabitants is student. And so there's a lot of need for student study places, because a lot of people live in small houses, and they don't feel like that there's a study atmosphere, and they like to go to places where a lot of people are studying, to come in the right mood for studying and drink a coffee and see other people as well. So we have about 500 chairs actually only for studying, divided through all the building. And that's what you see over here, that people just pick up the laptops and use our Wi-Fi and work over here. Now, this is an architectural picture, so you see no people in it. You know, the architects don't like people on the pictures, because then you can't see the lines of the building. So this is typical architectural picture, but you see the quality of the material used. Designed from the 60s, that's completely refurbished. And this is the part with the science books, and we combined them, and we gave them actually less space, but we have all the books still. Get the possibility to add more chairs and more sitting places through the library. So the library is more about being there than only about show all the books we have. But we still have the same collection as we had in our former building, but more combined in certain areas. Yeah, we have 2 exhibition halls. We had exhibitions about artificial intelligence, about the Aardman studios, from the studios that make the Chicken Run and Wallace and Gromit movies. And now we have Game On. Game On is an exhibition about 50 years of video games, from the first commercial video games till now. And it's a 1,200 square meter exhibit. So a lot of people use this building as it is a museum. You have to pay entrance, of course, for this traveling exhibits. But so we have a lot of functions, and we try to combine it with debate or instruction nights about workshops about making games. We have a game industry in the north of the Netherlands as well. With the university, we give a lot of workshops about how games are developing and where it's going to. But also fun. We have FIFA 2022 matches when young people can play the game against each other in the hall of their building. So we use the fun, but also the learning aspect of the game industry. And of course, this is the mix of entertainment. Play the old video games on the authentic consoles from 20, 30 years ago. So people really love this exhibit, and it's there for about half a year. The museum Story World is part of the museum, and actually that's more the creative part. Is how is a game made? How is a animation movie made? How do people work to make a cartoon? We explain the processes. We have the big artists over here to show. So that's actually a very important part in our building as well. And what we said before, it's when you want to make a new building, a new library, a new way of a cultural department store, someone told me. And actually that's quite a good description of this building, the cultural department store. I think it's very important that you can also have dinner or drink on a high level. When you do it on a low level, draw everything to the level of the place as the bar and the restaurant. And when you have a bar restaurant that's more upmarket, then everything is a little bit, feels more upmarket and feels more like an investment in the society. So for us it was really important that we had this kind of restaurants on the rooftop. And this is also part of the building. And you see, but it's not typical the library restaurant. It's really a high-class restaurant with a rooftop view over the whole city center. And we have a rooftop terrace above. And but for us it's really important the atmosphere that's in this concept. So to give it a certain level of entertainment. This is actually a funny slide, because this is actually what for us very important is. And I visited a lot of libraries in the world before we came to this concept. And a lot of libraries have some seriousness over them. And like our old library as well. For me it was very important that when you want to be popular, when there's too much education about it, in the feeling, in the way people look at you, when it's about education, about seriousness, about whispering, then people start to behave different, and a big part of the inhabitants is not attracted then. They're always serious people, but I think when you associate this building with fun, when you associate this building with having a good time, much better platform to give people inspiration or to help them to learn something. When you push the stuff to them, people are like this, and when you attract them and you get them interested in what you show, our idea is that when this is a place of fun and people like to come here because they have a good time over here, then they're in the building, and when they're in the building, we should inspire them to go to a debate, to start reading, to go to a workshop, go to a festival we organize. And those festivals can be about fun, but it can also be festivals about sustainability, for instance. But it starts with attracting people and show them that it's not only serious, that you can have a festival of sustainability also in a way that you also have not only seriousness, but also fun, and still learn as much as you want to do. So we always said in everything we develop, fun comes first. It should be nice to be there. It should be fun to attract more and a broader audience. So actually in every level in this building, we're trying to do that. This is a story world where people can make funny movies with at the role players that the role players in. Of course, virtual reality you can use for free virtual reality goggles. Now, as you see here, an interactive screen at the youth department where they have digital books, and you open the book and then you become part of the story of the book. This was we have open stage. I think it's a nice way because every Sunday morning you can show your trick actually to the audience. So when you have a choir and you want to sing songs and you want some audience for a change, then you can send us an email, and a certain level, doesn't have to be professional, but when you have only one lesson, well, maybe it's better to practice a little bit more. But you can go to the open stage, and on the open stage you can show what you can. And people really love it, and it's really a society thing. So people come here on Sunday morning to see what other people show. And sometimes it's celebrating the Chinese New Year, then we have the dragon through the hall. Sometimes it's like this, want to attract people to the karate sports, and then this is a karate school that invites young people and shows them how it can be done, and that's in our hall as well. We have choirs at Christmas time. We have people who want to do a quiz with audience, and then they set up the quiz in the city hall in the hall of the building, and so this is the open stage. Very important, I think, for the whole concept. We have a lot of games, just like chess, like backgammon, like other simple games, and people can play all the day long. And there's also a social event. Especially for the forum, we have vers. Vers is that's the Dutch word for fresh. And this is a youth program, and the youth program we have, for children between 15 and 18 years old. These program staff is a voluntary part of our building, and what they do is they develop programs for their own peers. So we are not, because it's very hard when you're grown up, or you're my age, like 52, it's very hard to get the idea what is very nice for people 16 years old. And everything we think is only because we thought about it, it's not fun for them because they don't like all the people telling them what to do. So we said we have this fresh panel, and we facilitate them to come up with parties, discussion nights, but for their own peers. And actually that worked very well. So these people have their own audience, have their own contacts, have their own Instagram followers. So this target group is targeted people from the same age. So this actually they work separately from the organization, and we only facilitate. We give them some funds, and we give them the facilities of the building, and they are responsible for reach out to this other group. And that's sometimes just organizing a great party for those kids, and sometimes it's discussion about sexuality or other matters that's really alive under this group of people. But it's their thing, and we are just standing aside and applaud when it's a good idea. We have those big openings, like last night, the James Bond No Time to Die movie. We made a big happening in the building. And I think one of the most special things of this building is the rooftop. As you see here, the whole situation, the market square, the big church, and you see our building over here. And you see in the building, this is cut out piece. It's the place where we do the rooftop cinema. So every Friday night we have a rooftop cinema in this building. During COVID, it was a little bit with some problems, and sometimes just only 50 visitors because no more were allowed. But now, the next weeks, everything is opening in the Netherlands. So I'm looking forward for a completely filled up building, and that we can have the success we had before, and especially with those things, because it's really a nice setting. You sit on the rooftop of the city, it's one of the highest buildings in the city, and you watch the movie and you see the church lighted on the horizon. And this is a great spot for being in the city, and people love it really. Even though it's not always nice weather, and people sitting there in the rain, but they don't bother. In the Netherlands, we're used to a little bit rain. Eh? The workshop with the technique, the studios, and this actually see here over this picture, you see how people use the building. They're sitting really everywhere with their laptops, studying and working. Images that you have an idea of how it works. This is our multi-purpose hall where we have debates and discussions and late night shows. And as I told you, our rooftop is the best gift of the building. Free entrance, and you can go there by escalator, so you don't have to climb up. And you have this great look over the city, and as far as you can see, because we're not a high-rise built area. And some latest pictures of our situation. And then you have, I think, an idea of how this building is as huge as it is for a city like Groningen. It really works and really became part of the society. From a lot of discussion before, is it now really a part of the society and the place where people want to be. And I think it's about time to end up, and I think I have all my slides. I'm happy to reach out with the forum. You're always welcome. My email is over there. When you have questions about the building, or you need some more information, or you're interested, just give me an email and I will promptly reply to you. I love to tell the story about the forum. I've seen a lot of great libraries and lookalike libraries in the world, and I'm happy to be, well, at least be the director of a library that's always trying to be on the front of the new developments. I hope that other people will do the same to give the library new chances for the future and bring it closer to the people in the city. For now, I thank you very much for your attention, and I hope my English was not so worse that you could keep up a little bit, because I talk fast and a lot, and sometimes I think quicker than my English can follow me. So I hope you didn't mind that, and I hope you had a great time with it. Thank you very much.